Warpugs, there are very few events in gaming that get as much attention as the Battle of Malevelon Creek. I can think of a few battles in Eve. I can think of a few of events in World of Warcraft. But the Battle of Malevelon Creek, just like some of the battles in Eve that I was there for, the Battle of Malevelon Creek was just one of those things that you just had to experience if you were there. If you were there for it, it was horrible. Space Nom was real, and there was no getting around it. Today, we're going to be checking out the Massacre on Malevelon Creek and its implications for the wider war. And this is from the Templin Institute. Now, if you're a veteran of Malevelon Creek, just leave a comment down below saying you were there. Because I was. Warpugs, we're going to get into this. All of the Templin Institute's links are going to be in the description down below, as well as my own. Let's just go with it. For Super Earth, for democracy.
The Helldiver Corps is aptly named. Its soldiers drop feet first into the deadliest theaters of war that Super Earth has to offer. Frozen tundras where biting winds strips flesh from bone, barren wastes where the air itself ignites in the blazing sun, and ancient forests so dark and deep that liberty itself cannot escape its winding trails. The Helldivers have dropped into 1,000 different hells. It was inevitable that one among them would reach out to leave the first bloody mark on the legacy of the Corps itself. And in the Severin sector, in the first year of the Galactic War, one world awaited its rendezvous with death and history. One world would become a battlefield of endless jungles, where ones and zeros echoed through the tattered leaves, and the horizon flashed with deadly neon. One world
speaking
where
binary,
the
man.
streams ran red with the blood of patriots. There are 1,000 different hells in the galaxy. There is only one, Malevelon Creek.
True.
In the early days of the Galactic War, as the Helldiver Corps spearheaded the Super Earth offensive across the galaxy, a sense of overconfidence had permeated throughout its ranks. The opening battles against the insectoid Terminids on the worlds of Heath and Angel's Venture had been extremely promising, and the Corps eagerly expected to extend the offensive across the whole of the neighboring Umlaut sector. Amidst the excitement of this initial campaign, the first reports from the distant automaton front, centered in the Severin sector, were almost entirely overlooked. The Helldivers mobilized there reported especially brutal fighting on one world that acted as the gateway to the rest of the sector. The planet was known as Malevelon Creek. It was a primordial world of dense alien jungles.
I was fighting on Era to Prime when I received the word I should deploy to Malevelon Creek. I was there, y'all!
Twisting, slender trees and thick ferns with spiky fronds, all blanketed under an ethereal blue-tinged mist that turned the horizon into a haunted soup of moving shapes and shifting shadows. There was no day or night on Malevelon Creek.
Nope.
Only an eerie twilight that persisted on the edge of both. Tens of thousands of Helldivers had already perished on the planet, even as their frantic reports and pleas for reinforcements were dismissed as exaggerations and panic-induced overreactions. The Super Earth High Command, fresh off the capture of Heath, was reluctant to pull resources away from the advancing Terminid front, and so the initial defenders of Malevelon Creek were forced to endure some of the most intense fighting of the war, in almost complete isolation. Gradually, however, as tales of the fighting began to spread across the galactic wide web, the extent of the emerging disaster on Malevelon Creek became more widely known. Helldiver reinforcements flooded into the Severin sector, but rather than shoring up the front's crumbling defenses, their arrival only deepened the chaotic nature of the battle. The arrivals were all veterans of the Terminid campaigns, but against a fundamentally different kind of enemy. They found their tactics and strategies hopelessly outmoded and ineffective.
Yes.
Veterans of 100 drops, Helldivers who had held the line against overwhelming waves of razor-clawed arachnids, were now effortlessly blasted into a bloody mist by advanced weaponry, or crushed from above by dropships loaded with strange machines. They were relentlessly, mercilessly pressed from all sides, hammered by mortars, tanks, and brutally effective fighting socialists. The automatons prepared defensive positions, laid mines, and could quickly redeploy when threatened. No matter how many were cut down by small arms, or reduced to slag from orbital fire, the jungle forever glowed with red lights, piercing through the mist.
They were always everywhere.
Casualties skyrocketed, and morale plummeted. Many Helldivers transferred back to the Terminid front, while those that remained on Malevelon Creek struggled to counter the immense numbers and devastating tactics of the automatons. Under severe pressure, but lacking an effective strategy, Super Earth High Command focused on establishing a defensive posture, but this could only delay the inevitable. The beachhead established by the Helldivers on the planet eroded day by day, with even the most successful defense unable to shift the momentum of the wider fighting. Yet amongst the Helldivers deployed to the creek, a new cadre of veterans was emerging. Many of its members had fought the automatons since day one, while others had answered the desperate call for reinforcements, and refused to leave for easier battlefields once the nature of the fighting had presented itself. Together, the old guard of Malevelon Creek and these new steadfast recruits combined the lessons of both theaters and committed themselves to fighting the battles no one else could. While other Helldivers merely held the line, these warriors advanced relentlessly, sometimes by miles, sometimes just inches. They snaked their way through robot-infested swamps day by day, enduring the most terrible of hardships at even the slightest chance to push the line forward.
Yes.
They rescued scientists, collected samples, and spread democracy across the creek in 100 other ways.
Usually through 500-kilogram bombs.
To them, defending the world was not enough. It had to be retaken.
Yes.
And there could be no substitute for what the fight required. They wore the shattered gears and sensors of slain automatons as grim trophies, their faces smeared with oil as they immersed themselves in the silicon viscera of the enemy. They came to be known as the Creek Crawlers. Units like the Creek Crawlers and others that made a name for themselves during the fighting turned their struggle into a great propaganda effort. The Creek was elevated to an almost mythical status.
Yes.
A place where a Helldiver could test their mettle and prove themselves. But in an ironic twist so common in war, the symbolic value of the planet would be the primary cause of its fall. So desperate was Super Earth to liberate Malevelon Creek that other, equally important worlds were overlooked. When the automatons established beachheads on Mantas and Draupnir, they threatened to cut off access to the entire Severin sector.
I was so pissed.
In at least 2 instances, the creek was isolated from further reinforcements as neighboring worlds were lost, only to be hastily reinforced as fierce Super-Earth counterattacks worked to keep these planets contested. But in each case, far too many Helldivers were committed solely to the creek, while the worlds that made the fighting there possible shriveled on the vine. In orbit of the planet, the fighting was every bit as intense, as thousands of super destroyers struggled to maintain the corridors into the sector while providing support to forces on the ground. Their ability to accomplish the latter was increasingly stymied by severe ion storms, turning what was already a deadly battlefield into a slaughter. The planet was soon cut off once again. On February 25th, roughly 2 weeks into the start of the Galactic War, the last Helldiver teams on Malevelon Creek were killed, and Super Earth High Command declared the planet fully lost. The fighting moved into the Tsar sector, ending all hope of a quick end to the automaton war. Complexity and tragedy are inherent to warfare. It was inevitable that at some time, on some world, Super Earth would suffer its first defeat. But at the start of the Galactic War, with the universe seemingly ripe for the conquest, even the most pragmatic Helldiver could not have been prepared for what lay ahead. Now, the veil of ignorance has been lifted, the stage is set, and the stakes are clear. Other hells will soon dominate the headlines of the galactic wide web, new battlefields that may even eclipse the terrible fighting in the Severin sector. But no matter how fierce the battles or dramatic the campaigns, the memory of Malevelon Creek will endure. Its bloody mark has been left across the whole of the Helldiver core, the whole of Super Earth. It has shaped the souls of those who survived and gifted them their most sacred duty: to carry forward the legacy of those that fell during the massacre at Malevelon Creek.
We went back there. We went back.
In High Command, the Templin Institute investigates the greatest battles, conflicts, and wars from across alternate worlds. If you've enjoyed this video and would...
We took Malevelon Creek. We fully took it. We had it taken so many times. We almost took it several times in the first few weeks. But Joel kept on throwing things at us. But when we took it, oh my God, it was a celebration. It was an absolute celebration when we finally took Malevelon Creek. Warpugs, if you were at Malevelon Creek, just tell me you were there. You probably saw me falling from the sky. Right there alongside you. No automaton is going to hold the creek. No, that won't happen. Warpugs, I'm going to take off from here. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I hope that one day, if you weren't involved with this particular incident, I hope that one day you're involved in something else like this. Because it's always fun when some things are brought up to be able to say, yeah, I did that. I was there for that. It's just kind of I don't know. It's an interesting aside. It's part of nerd culture, and God, I love it. I'm going to head out from here. Check the links in the description below for my links, including Patreon, all that kind of good stuff. Cat is staring at me. It's time to head out. I'll catch you warbugs next time.